Hi, Michael J. Crawford here. And so far, unfortunately, I haven't gotten any good ideas on how to kill my backwards clone here, but I did find at least one useful purpose for it. Go ahead, whenever you're ready. Not the fastest guy in the world, but you know. Okay, could I get something to wash that down with, please?
Yes.
Yes.
It's like the next that shit.
So you see, the nice thing about having a reverse clone
Good for you, isn't it? What?
is that you don't have to pay for any food.
Fan de mig att
Vad drinks?
och det ser också ut. Det är också december så vad här. Se knoster capping när det men jag måste lägga det.
I'm Michael J. Crawford.
Well, you didn't send it all night. You'll be back or there's no way. That's near me. And you're reading that. You're not a good being it. You know, so it gets it down. Oof, it's like that, you know, there you go.
Us. And this is the Rational Roundtable. So my clone is in the other room preparing a nice dinner, and I thought I would take this opportunity to respond to the Man of Earth. And first thing I want to say is to the Man of Earth, I'm truly sorry that I've not responded to you sooner. I wish I could offer some reasonable explanation, but quite frankly, it simply slipped my mind with all the other stuff that I was doing. And when you reminded me, I felt like, you know, a complete ass, quite frankly, because I had not responded to you already. So, excuse me. So just to let you, fill you guys in if you haven't seen it, Skirkova, a YouTube atheist, and I started a discussion, which we need to get back into as well, about the existence of God. And after Skirkova and I went back and forth a little bit, the Man of Earth put in a video response challenging one of my videos, to which you know, I felt that his video was quite poorly done, and this was the first time I've ever seen the Man of Earth, and so quite frankly I ripped him an intellectual new one. To which he responded in kind, and when I say that, I mean that, first of all, unlike most people, and I know I've said this a little bit before, but unlike most people, after I did my response to him, he recognized the mistakes of his argument and, you know, attempted to correct them in a new video response. And I will grant you that your new video response is much better than the first one. Now, the thrust of his argument is that my entire argument for the existence of God is based on equivocation, in that I confuse the two definitions under definition 3 of arbitrary under the Merriam-Webster dictionary. And I would respond yes and no. I did, at least in part, do that, and for that, you know, that's, you know, my fault. I should have thought about it a little further when before I did my response to you. When I did do my arbitrary action of choosing dark chocolate over milk chocolate, I was clearly using definition A, as you said. However, when talking about the universe as a whole, generally speaking, we're talking about definition B, which, just for those of you, I'm not going to go through the definitions again. You can see the prior video for that. But definition A of arbitrary basically means that something is due to personal preference or choice, not based on necessity. Where definition B is the apparent random nature of something, although granted the definition specifically says something coming into existence, but I'm not going to get into a big old semantic argument here. But basically definition B deals with randomness, definition A deals with preference. And so I was using both definitions in my initial argument, and I didn't clearly differentiate between them. And when I did my little demonstration, I was only using definition A, and so yes, clearly I equivocated a little bit, and for that I'm sorry. But what my argument is not based on just definition A or definition B or switching the two. I would submit to you that regardless of which definition you use, the core of the argument still applies. The universe is not arbitrary, while humans can be. Now, when we talk about randomness, I would state that nothing in the universe outside of sentient living beings can possibly be random. And I know that some people, and I've talked about this a little before, but it's worth mentioning again, the primary objection that I hear about that is quantum fluctuations. However, there is nothing random about quantum fluctuations. There's nothing random about the uncertainty principle in quantum mechanics. It's about predictability. And so for that, I would like to draw a little demonstration. So the pool balls did not randomly come to their location. Based on the impact of the cue ball to the stack, that was the only way they could have ended up. There was nothing arbitrary about that at all. However, to a human, it was completely unpredictable. There was no way you could know the exact location of where all the balls would end up before the actual event. And when dealing with quantum mechanics, it's really a principle of dealing with the unpredictable nature of the universe, in that we don't have all the information, and attaining some of the information is, at least at present, impossible to do without changing the information, which means we can never have all the information. So it's not about randomness, simple predictability. However, I would submit that humans can behave in an unpredictable fashion, assuming, of course, that there is such a thing as free will. If you're a hard determinist, then obviously you would reject that notion. Now, on the personal preference side, obviously I would say that we would probably agree that non-sentient beings, such as planets, stars, or anything else that we could possibly name that's not a sentient being, cannot enact personal preference. Again, going back to the pool illustration, the various balls could not choose where they wanted to end up. They simply ended up where they did based on the force applied to them. Such is the nature of everything in the universe, with the exception of sentient beings. We seem to make choices, whereas a rock, a planet, any non-living thing cannot. And with living things that we might not qualify as sentient, that's debatable. But the but the universe, unless you want to argue some form of pantheism, where you want to suggest that the universe is a living being, but then, quite frankly, you wouldn't be an atheist. Unless you want to argue that the universe is a living being, the universe itself could not make a preferential choice. Now, if you grant me at this point that the universe is neither random nor can it make a personal preferential choice, we run into a problem in an atheistic worldview. And this was the core of my argument, which is that given that the universe won't make personal choices and is not random in nature, why did the prime mover, whatever it may be, whether you want to call it a quantum fluctuation, colliding brains, one of the many other theories out there, or God, what could initiate the first action? Because, if we want to get into it, I mean, it's basically impossible to have an infinite series of actions prior to now. There had to be a first mover, a prime mover. And so given that, what initiated it? How, because it had to have done it somehow internally. It couldn't have responded to an outside force, because then the outside force would be the prime mover. Whatever the initial prime mover is, why did it move? Now, perhaps you can come up with a good sound answer to that, but most people can't. That's a question that I struggled with when I was an atheist, is that the simple fact that even, the best that most science-minded atheists, people like Carl Sagan and others, the best that they could come up with is to push the issue back, rather than suggest that, well, the Big Bang wasn't the beginning. The Big Bang was the result of a big crunch from a prior universal state, which in turn was the result of a prior Big Bang, which in turn was the result of a prior big crunch. You just keep pushing the question back ad infinitum so that you don't have to answer that question. But if we're going to be intellectually honest about it, eventually you have to come to the beginning. Like I said in my Great Tortoise Conundrum series that I did for Honest Discussioner, you have to get to the floor eventually. It can't be an infinite number of tortoises. Now remember, there is a difference between infinite and eternal. And that's kind of whatever the prime mover is. It doesn't, it doesn't matter if we're talking about a conscious God or some kind of impersonal force, whatever it may be. It must have existed in an eternal state, which means that up until the moment that it initiated the first move, the first action, time did not exist, and therefore you could say that nothing before that would happen. It was in an eternal state. Now, I would grant you that if you can come up with a naturalistic solution that does not require time nor any kind of outside force to initiate the prime move, then I would have a tougher time with my argument. But until such time, I doubt that an unliving force could do this. My supposition when talking to Skirkova, and hopefully Skirkova, I apologize for not having responded to your last video. Hopefully we can get back into this a little bit too. But my supposition is that only a living conscious entity could have initiated something on an arbitrary basis, and in this case we're talking about a preferential basis. That for whatever reason a conscious entity may have wanted to cause things to happen, not that it was necessary for things to happen. Now, if you say that it is necessary for things to happen, you have to show why. I'm not, suggesting that it being necessary is not impossible, but making an absolute statement like that, that the first cause was a necessary action, well, there has to be a reason for that. The universe, again, is not arbitrary, and in this case we're talking about arbitrary in the random sense. The universe does not simply do things in a random fashion. So, just to clarify a little bit, Man of Earth, I did equivocate a little bit in my prior videos. For that I apologize. However, to make it clear, both definitions apply in that they can be applied to human beings, but they cannot be applied to the universe. Now, I know that with the random side, the subject of free will invariably comes up. And while I find free will an interesting topic, I don't want to broaden the scope to that point. There's no point in arguing about free will at this point, because even if you patently reject the random option, you still have the preferential problem to deal with. So I look forward to your response, and again, I apologize for taking so darn long. Now, hopefully, my clone is about done with dinner. Till next time, take care.
Really, Scott? Hell in it. Skapam error in Irish that yes, yeah, yes, and also that. Snow cat bells, but now it's be stuck, Gibson, and that's not an actually fit. Stop. We sure wish girls nice line there, yes, not. He'll see my. Well, the map. Serve the name.